Okay, so circling the hips, nice and slow. And then circle the opposite direction. I'm just kind of checking in, spot that feels a little like it's clicking. And again, the going from very hot to much cooler. My heat actually turned on yesterday. I had to do something about that. Your tissue really changes. So you're just kind of feeling into like what does that change? Some people just feel more invigorated. They feel better energy. Other people feel a little stiffer. So you're just taking all that in, paying attention to how the climate affects your body. Okay, so I'm gonna bring my feet together and bend the knees and circle. And here I'm just letting my low back get longer and longer. So as my knees bend forward, if you use a little bit of core support, you'll get the back opening. Of course, I'm turning through the ankles and feeling through the feet as well. And noticing how the knees respond to this. If you got any clicks today, what's going on there? Circle the other way. Let the low back lengthen. All right, and then come back and roll the shoulders. And circle the other way. Lots of popping and cracking there. Ear to the shoulder and relax and roll forward. So I know I've said to some of you, Katie was at a workshop last weekend, that how slow Alex goes when he's doing his warm-ups. It's slower than this. Really just taking in what's going on, letting the tissue slowly open up and relax. And really just connecting in to what's happening in your body. What happened this week? And turning the palm the opposite direction. All right, so we're going to turn and do the warm up through the feet. So rolling up on to the ball of the foot and picking up my toes. So in effect, I'm actually asking my feet to do a little bit more animated action. So I bring the chi down and some circulation into my feet and the noticing into my feet. So I want my feet, the more pliable my feet are, the more I can connect to the earth. And then it's that pliability will, kind of move up my legs. So I'm just asking for my toes to lift and my heel to lift and really warming them up. And then I can let my arms start to swing. So this is a gradual warm up into the full movement that you guys know we've done before, the Qigong, the heart and kidney Qigong. But I'm just letting my arms swing back and forth, bringing the energy up the body. And then you open and fold. So you can take this, into a bigger movement if your body feels ready for it. But it's quite a big movement. So opening up the back of the leg, bladder meridian, and opening up the front of the body, the heart, water, and fire. And on a cooler morning, this is a nice warm up, gets the circulation going in your body. Stretch the back and open the front. All right, and then we're going to come back, turn to the other side, and start the warm up that way. So really lifting the heel and lifting the toe. So if you have a tight calf, you're going to feel it on the lifting the toe part. So a little more animation through your foot than you might ordinarily have, walking around your house. Warming up from the bottom, stretching the fascia on the bottom of your foot, your ankle, the calf, deep under the calf, a muscle called the soleus. And if I bend my knees a little bit more, of course, I'm going to start warming up my thighs. And then letting my arms begin to swing. It's going to bring some of that circulation up into my chest. And if this is all you can manage, in a morning, it's a pretty good Qigong in and of itself, because the pressing back is going to open up your chest and soften the muscles on the front that get so tight, and ask for a little bit more wake up to the back of the shoulder. But then you can do the full open and fold and start a little mild and build into a deeper stretch. Wake up the feet, wake up the legs, wake up the back, wake up the heart, shoulders, and then rising up and looking out, and then looking downward. You're letting your posture change your gaze. Looking in, looking out. And the deeper you go, the more heart pumping you're going to get, so the more warm up. Okay, one more. And then we'll step around and just do a little bit of horse stance. So we're going to do a warm up for the hips. So you kind of take your hips where they are. You're placing your hands on your hips and kind of notice, if one hip feels higher than the other. We're just going to slide and glide the hip laterally. So I'm actually taking my hand and I'm pressing into the hip crease, because that's going to increase the stretch deep inside the medial aspect of your hip and the adductor. I'm asking for a little medial lateral stretch for the hip joint. Again, if you're having problems with your knees, it's a good idea to do the stretch. Obviously, you're having a problem with your hip. Gently doing this and getting information from your body, like for instance, my right side will bend down more easily than my left side. It's just information. It's more flexibility in that direction from my right hip than my left. So I'm just considering that. All right, and then anterior posterior pelvic tilt. So you let the tailbone go out back, and then you scoop the tailbone under. So now you're basically rolling your pelvis forward and back on the femoral heads. So one is going to open up the back, and one is going to tighten up the back. So one is lengthening and then shortening, and lengthening and shortening. So then when I come forward, it's lower core and release. Tailbone under is lower core and release. And we all have the way that we're built, either anteriorly or posteriorly tilted. So if you have a posterior tilt, it's going to be easier for you to move into that direction than into an anterior tilt. Again, you're just getting information. We are built the way we're built, and we're just trying to work with that, but we're trying to loosen up around it. Okay, so front and back. And now come to the middle, side to side, front to back. And then the slightly more complicated notion is this going across the diagonal. So it's going to stretch the ligaments a little bit around my SI joint, and of course the hip flexor. We move across diagonals all the time. Walking is a diagonal movement, but we rarely isolate the pelvis in that diagonal movement. So this is a chance to get a little more information. All right, we come back, we're going to go back across the other diagonal. It's opening up the SI joint, opening up the hip flexor. And sometimes you could just kind of notice it's like, it's a coordination weirdness, that you were fine across one diagonal. That's often the case, and not as fine across the other. So again, just noticing that. Right. This is really, really good for loosening up essentially everything in your body, because you're starting with this central position. And then I'm going to go ahead and go around a circle, which is very different than when I'm just standing. When I'm in the horse stance, the circling is much more focused in my hips. And when I'm standing straight up, I might feel more my back and, the outer hip, but this is going to get inside my hips a little better. Good hip warm up, stand in whatever horse stance you can, and move in as many directions as you can, and circle the other way. Because in Tai Chi, of course, we keep the pelvis centered, and we ask the appendages to do the moving. I'm still getting medial, lateral, anterior, posterior pelvic tilt, but to the outside observer, the pelvis is still, and it's the appendage that moves. So we have to kind of figure that out when we're moving around in the form. All right, so hang out there for a second. Just let your hips just relax now. You've done all this work, all this warm up. You got your circulation picked up a little bit. And notice, just micro move your pelvis to find the most comfortable position. Just drop that pelvic floor into the earth. And it might just show up right away, like this feels comfortable. I feel the middle of both of my feet. I feel the middle of my crown. I can lift up to the ceiling. And then something will show up like, oh, there's that tightness there. There's something that wants to distort that centeredness. And, that's just part of our daily habit. So we're going to go up to finding the false ribs as they come in. So they scoop up and go right to my xiphoid process in the front of my ribs. So a lot of times we say drop the tailbone, drop the tailbone, drop the tailbone, lengthen the back, lengthen the back. But the problem is that we're flaring the ribs and bringing the heart up. So we make a hard curve in the back because of what we're doing with the front. So if I take my hands, I just drop my tailbone again, and I take my hands, the heel of one hand or the heel of both hands, and just scoop up my false ribs, the one just underneath the breast area. And then just scoop those ribs a little together, like you can really feel like they're kind of knit together. And let the lower portion of your thorax just relax, open. Sometimes that's what you need to get your tailbone to drop. That it's the fact that the chest is a little lifted, the ribs are flaring open. Now I've got this arch in my back, and I try to drop my tailbone. I'm fighting myself. So I'm going to just kind of make this a little obvious. I'm going to scoop my ribs a little together to open up the thorax so that the lumbars can just drop. All right, I'm going to do this again, letting my ribs flare, heart comes up, and what's going to happen is your back is going to hollow. So scooping the ribs in, letting the kidney area open helps the lumbars to soften that curve so you can drop your tailbone. Okay, so this is just different ways to find out why it's difficult for you to drop your tailbone. All right, so that flared rib, and it's okay to feel openness, but if I can't also contain that energy so that I can open the kidneys, then I'm lacking something. Okay, so my ribs flared out, my heart lifted, hollow the back. And for martial purposes, and this is a martial art, I don't really want to have the emperor, my heart, sticking out there. So sometimes it's right to bring the heart in, knit the ribs, open the kidneys, drop the back, and drop the tailbone. Okay, the shoulders, to find the middle way. Often, if you take your arms, you just hang them to the sides, and you flare your ribs. And sometimes you're doing that flare of the ribs because you're trying to knit your shoulder blades together and down. And so the way that you're doing it is by letting this whole area open. It kind of like looks like come and get me. It's this totally open, my solar plexus and my heart. But if I knit the ribs together, I can open the kidney area. My shoulders will come a little bit more neutral instead of back. I want to learn how to feel my shoulder blades connect in the back in this position with the knits, the ribs knit together a little bit. Okay, because if I let go of the front to get that back, now I've got the hollow. I'm artificially pushed back. The front is completely open. So knitting the ribs, bringing the shoulders to neutral, opening the kidney area, dropping through the lumbars, dropping into my legs. So now I'm more neutral. The opposite of this would be, when you're having a bad day, sinking the heart, sinking the solar plexus, rounding the back, closing the shoulders. Okay, so we often say knit the shoulder blades together to get you back up into a more open position. But if I overdo this, you end up opening up the whole solar plexus area. It's just completely open. And then I start scooping through the back. So a neutral spine is one that's chased in from this two out and this two out. I'm coming back to the center. I'm centering the column. And what might be keeping you from centering the column? One of the places might be that your solar plexus is too expanded, your heart is too open, your back is too scooped. And if you're like this, try to drop your tailbone. It's a lot of work. If this is too open, it's going to be a lot of work to drop your tailbone. So you want to neutralize here. Find the middle way. I'm not sinking, rounding the upper back, but I am finding the ways to connect to the core channel, bring the ribs into the core channel, opening the kidneys around the core channel, letting the shoulder blades come out to the sides and just connecting the back a little bit around the core channel. Not too sunk, which is letting my back go disconnect, not too open, overly connected in the back, overly open in the front. I'm trying to find neutral, a little balance from front to back. Okay, so that's something that just is showing up in that, all that saying, bring your shoulder blades together and down to get out of the rounded shoulder forward. But the problem with that is if you're not paying attention to the solar plexus area, you can end up flaring that area. And then your back is really stuck. Okay, neutral. Okay, so I've got too much front. I got to bring this to the back, right? If I've got too much sinking, I have to raise this up and connect the shoulder blades, but not to the point where I start pushing the front, which I'm now losing the back. Okay, you're trying to bring all of your energy around like a central beam. You know, who's too far away from that beam? Is the solar plexus out there? Is the tailbone out there? Is the chin out there? You're trying to bring all the parts together around that central channel. So it's true for yoga, for Pilates, for meditation, for Tai Chi. All of these practices, mind-body practices, trying to gather us back up towards the core channel again and lengthening around that core channel. Not with and it's hard to lengthen around the core channel if the pieces of the channel are going this way and that. That's, you know, decentralized. So I want to come back around, bringing my tailbone in, bringing my solar plexus in, bringing a little energy to the shoulder blades so I don't round the shoulders, and let the neck float up and the crown float up. Again, the top of the ears to the top of the head is going to let my crown float up instead of having the chin forward. So if you take your chin and you push it forward, what's going to happen to keep you in balance, your tailbone will go out. So if I bring my chin in, I can bring my tailbone down. So this is the ends affecting one another. Lifting up at my ears, letting my pelvis that I've just gotten all relaxed just fall right into the center of the earth. And now, I mean, that could be your practice one morning. It's just trying to figure out how to center around your core channel. Because frequently we do all of our movements and we're not quite centered yet. Okay, so it'll strengthen the muscles that may be a little too loose here, bringing the abs a little bit knit together along the front line of the body, the conception vessel, the linea alba, right in through here. Okay, sideways, vertically, diagonally through the obliques. There's a lot of directions that support holding this container, containing it to the core channel, around the core channel. Okay.